Welcome to Creative Percussion Podcast, episode number 7. My name is Justin Mason, and my guest today is...
Charles Davis.
How you doing, Charles?
I am great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. So, this, of course, is the Creative Percussion Podcast, and I have loved the episodes that I've done so far. And my favorite question to ask is the question that I'm about to ask you. What is the creative percussion product that does not leave your drum set?
Well, there's a couple. The things that I always have in my cymbal bag or in my stick bag, because I saw these products from conception.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying anything out of turn. Kevin Feeney is probably the most innovative, creative individual I've ever met. And we're not even talking about just him being a drummer. It's just the way his mind is. He literally thinks of things that no one else would think of. And then they come to fruition. I don't know how he does it. So the thing that never leaves my bag, I showed you a moment ago,
Mm-hmm.
the original hex stack.
Yes.
Now, when I got this, he gave me 3 different plates. So I don't know if he still does that, but I have 3 different plates and I can adjust them. I won't hit it because we're on a podcast, but
Yeah.
I can either stack them all on top of each other or I can slightly offset them so I can twist them. So
Yeah.
kind of give me, you know what, check this out. I can give you a better shot because I had to learn how to do this stuff during COVID. I had to learn how to use multiple camera angles.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So I can take this and slightly put them offset.
Yeah.
And it changes the sound. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing that never leaves. The second thing, and I did hear my boy Justin talking about it earlier, are the twist rods.
Yes.
Which again, Kevin lives 25 minutes from where I live.
Mm-hmm.
He's come down to my studio. I've gone up to his. My background has been mostly teaching and performing, and his has been, engineering and creating things.
Right.
So I have the original twist rods. I think I still have the black one, but I've had these probably 3 years, maybe
Oh,
even
nice.
longer.
Yeah.
But I had these when they were black. That was the first series, and then he came out with these.
Yeah.
He came out with the Bigfoots. So yeah, so that's 2 things, and the last thing is the drum taco.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different products in the market to give you just enough dampening. You're not taking away the tone of the drum or your snare drum. And again, I think he told me the story behind this. They were actually having tacos one night, and he said, "How cool would it be to have a snare dampening device that tacos?" So
Yeah.
only Kevin would think about that.
Yeah, and there are so many things, like you said, there's, you have the snare weight, you have the big fat snare drum thing, but the thing that is so innovative, and there's a reason that this company is called Creative Percussion, because
Right.
it's stuff that only Kevin could think of.
Absolutely.
But the thing that I love about the drum taco is you can easily take it on and off your drum set without missing a beat. If you have a snare weight, the house kit that I play on at my church has a snare weight. And if I want to take it off, it's like an act of Congress. Like I have to go get a bill from, the city hall and this and that, like to take it
Yeah,
off.
man.
And for the drum
Right.
taco, you can take your stick and flip it over and it still hangs and you can flip it back with your stick and it's just so
Yeah,
easy to
man.
use.
And again, it's like I remember, when the whole YouTube thing kind of blew up and everyone was posting their videos, I
Hmm.
always see all these cats with their wallet, like a
Yeah.
big, thick wallet sitting on the drum.
Yeah.
And yeah, it sounded good, but having to do that, and I'm thinking, okay, how's that thing staying still? You must be putting like tape or something under the bottom side. Because I tried that, and mine would move around all over the place. So,
Yeah.
this definitely solved the problem. And I think, see again, this is the original one because this one's blue. They're all
Hmm.
different colors now.
Yeah.
So in a lot of situations, I was like one of the first to try this stuff and see him. He called me and say, "Charles, you got to come check this out." So I just shoot up
Yeah.
and I remember I remember a lot of the times he's like, "All right, don't tell anybody, but this is what I'm working on," because I knew it was going to be great. He'd always say, "Listen, don't say anything, but this is going to take off." It did. And I knew, and I'd always tell him, I said, "You know what, Kevin?" I said, "Once the world catches on to what you're doing, it's going to blow up." It is, going to drum shows and
Yeah.
putting his products out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that's the whole idea behind this podcast is he was like, I don't want to get famous from doing this. I just want more people to know about it because he believes in his products.
Yeah.
Because we were even talking about. I was like, so, I do another podcast aside from this one, and we've gotten talks with some companies about ads, and I'm like, so what would you want us to split the ad revenue if ads came about for this podcast or whatever? And he was like, I don't want any money from this. He said, I just want more people to know about creative percussion. And that's the kind of guy that Kevin is. He doesn't want to blow up and be famous because of his products. He wants to make his products because they help other drummers. And that's just the kind of
He
selfless
should,
person that he is.
and he is. But I tell him all the time that you should get the recognition that is due. Sure, the
Exactly.
difference is you don't have this, huge manufacturing assembly line
Right.
cranking this stuff out. He's literally in his shop.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever get a chance to take a tour of the shop. It's crazy because it's
Yeah.
like he's a mad scientist and he has all these things going on and he knows exactly where everything is. You know what I mean? So don't
Hmm.
get touching stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's truly become one of my best musician drumming friends. I've learned a lot from
Yeah, and
him.
it's just been amazing to get to know him over. I've only been in contact with him for a year now, but it's been amazing for me to get to know him, and just to have conversations with him. And to
Yeah,
just go, hey, what if you did this with this? And kind of throwing him ideas. And he's like, yeah, I've already thought about that. Not in a arrogant way, but his mind is always working to the point where if you give him an idea, he's probably already thought of it 3 months ago and has three prototypes.
yeah. Listen, I was in a wedding band probably 2018, and probably the busiest I've ever been.
Yeah.
A little bit about what I do. I'm basically a self-taught drummer
Mm-hmm.
who started playing when he was 6 years old. And I'm old school, so I grew up, and I'll have to show you around, but if you go around my studio, I have albums. A lot of my students don't even know what those are.
Right.
But I got all my albums from back in the day, going from Kiss to Aerosmith to the Police to Journey to, you know, New Edition.
Yeah.
So my music taste was all over the board growing up because all my aunts and uncles were like Motown, Jacksons, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have my whole group of friends who are into the rock stuff, so I kind of gravitated towards that too. So there really wasn't anything that was off limits for me.
Right.
Um, but as I started to develop, I started to hear things that I didn't quite understand. Um, so for me, and I'm a lot like a lot of drummers. I started when I was 6.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Never really took any formal lessons. Didn't get a drum set till I was 16. So that's 10 years of me just watching and observing and trying to mimic what I saw people do. It wasn't until I was about 8 years old that my mom enrolled me into a local drum and bugle corps, and that changed my life. I didn't know anything about rudiments or anything like that. So I'm like 8, 9 years old, carrying a drum, that was bigger than me. Um, but I remember hearing you guys talk a little bit about your background of being in the marching band. So drum set was always the first love.
Mm-hmm.
Marching percussion just gave me another tool.
Yeah.
Taught me things and gave me chops that I didn't know that were attainable. You know what I mean? But even then, because you guys are talking about learning to read and
Mm-hmm.
understanding rhythm and note values, I did not learn how to read till I was like 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
So that's all that time of just listening and observing. everyone tell you, hey, what about that movie Drumline? Now, I'm not going to say my true feelings about that movie because I don't think it's realistic, because I've done drum corps and Drumline is not anything close to that.
Right.
But I was that kid who had a strong ear, a lot of talent hearing and mimicking, but not reading. So if you would have told me then that I would be the percussion instructor for Nashville High Marching Band for 20 years, writing and arranging scores, I would have laughed at you. But that's what I really believe that, because I'm a spiritual man, I believe God gives us gifts, everyone gifts, but there's a difference between your gift and your calling.
Right.
And sometimes they're one and the same, right? But what I found was this gift was the vehicle. My calling is teaching and mentoring. You feel me?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And it took me a while to realize that, because I would look at all my idols, coming up. And well, let me back up. So I did have a few formal lessons. I did when I was 20. I studied with this guy, Steve Michaud, who was a student of Gary Chafee.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Chafee is known for teaching all the giants that we love,
right.
Steve Smith. So Steve Michaud was he was in the same conversation as Steve Smith and Jimmy Collins. So that, I don't even have to say any more about that, but Steve was the introduction to, okay, you've listened to Zeppelin and Aerosmith and Kiss. He's like, let's listen to Peter Erskine. Let's listen to David Weckl. And that's when my head went, oh my gosh, I wasted all this time. And it wasn't wasted time. I just wasn't exposed to it.
Yeah.
So the three teachers that have changed my life in the past 20 years, Steve, in this order, Steve Michaud, Mike Mangini, and then Dave DeCenzo.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Steve introduced me to the styles that I wasn't familiar with. And then once I studied with Mangini, that was more about how does the body work? How do you get in tune with how your body works? And you'd always say, what is this thing and how does it work?
Yeah.
And then DeCenzo wasn't until 2010 when I met Dave and started studying with him. And to me, DeCenzo is probably the most organic teacher that I've had.
So you actually got to study under Mike Mangini?
Absolutely, yeah. That was 2005.
Gosh.
Now I never went to Berkeley, but I did study with Berkeley professors because I had a son at a very young age,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't mean you stop, striving for your dreams. Sometimes they get detoured, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But you still keep moving forward. I had no idea I was going to be able to do this,
mm-hmm.
right? Because if you look around, there's the student kit over there. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't know you can make a living without doing this.
Yeah.
And another fun fact, I was actually in 1989, I got accepted to the University of North Texas State.
Mm-hmm.
Just come out of drum corps, and one of my buddies, he was going out. We were going to go together. I remember I did the audition process, not thinking I was going to get in, and I got in. But I had to make that decision between taking care of my responsibility or moving to Texas, and I chose to just do the right thing and be a dad to my son, who's 30 now, if you can believe that.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, man. I'll be 51 in October. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I love what you said about, your calling, because I myself am a spiritual person. So I felt a calling on my life. I played drums. I got my first kit when I was 13 and played drums growing up in the church that I grew up in. And so I was at a summer camp and I felt a calling on my life to write music. And it was so crazy. A week before that, a friend of mine was at a church camp with a different church organization, but the very same camp. And at the exact same time, 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night, a week apart, we had the exact same calling in the exact same spot at that camp.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, he and I kind of started our first band and all that. But it was there that I knew, this is what I'm going to do in whatever capacity that I do.
Exactly. That makes sense.
So
and I think when you're younger, you have this dream. Like you look, what do we do? We all, anyone who plays drums will tell you, what do we do to get better? We emulate the greats. We start studying what's come before us and try to not
Yeah.
copy, but emulate. And I have a list of influences that I can go through, but
Hmm.
sometimes influence you have changes for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know the first time, and I have some great stories about this band. So, and I'll go on record. So if Will Calhoun is listening, Living Color is the band that totally changed my life forever because all the bands I grew up, I grew up on the East Coast in New England,
Yeah.
and a lot of the neighborhoods I grew up in were predominantly white. So,
Hmm.
in a lot of cases, I was the only African American in a lot of my classrooms.
Yeah.
So, what I started to do is to gravitate towards what all my friends were listening to, and
Hmm.
it was all 70s, 80s rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, when I was with my family, it was all old school R&B, Marvin Gaye, Gladys Knight and the Pips, and the
Yeah.
Jacksons, and all that stuff. So I was always exposed to everything. But when Living Color broke in like early 87, 88, I saw
Hmm.
guys that looked like me playing the music that I loved to listen to, and it totally flipped it. So I went through this whole Living Color. uh, Dude, it's like my connection to Living Color is so much so that in 2009 they came to Londonderry, New Hampshire.
Uh-huh.
And I have documents. I'm looking at the shrine on my wall right now. They changed my life so much. You remember that movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah.
You ever see it when he grows
Hmm.
up and he's got all the posters on the wall and all the albums? And then one day he's at the concert and he gets to go up on stage. I had that same moment.
Really?
I got to sing I got to sing with Living Color
Oh my
on
gosh.
stage with my heroes. And the only reason that happened was because the singer got laryngitis. I will take this story to my grave. It's like it was the greatest moment. I could have died that night.
Oh wow.
Put me in my coffin. But
Yeah.
yeah, so and but then it wasn't even the icing on the cake to be able to look in the eyes of my heroes and tell them what an influence it had on my life. This kid
Hmm.
who didn't really know how he fit in because all my black friends would be like, "You're not supposed to listen to that music."
Yeah.
I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And my white friends are like, "Well, how come you don't talk like them?" So it was like it was very. I went through a lot of trying times as a young drummer. But
Yeah.
the one thing that I held on to is that regardless of what people said, these never talked back to me. They
Yeah.
never judged me, and whenever I needed them, they were right here.
Absolutely.
And so there's always been. I know I kind of jumped from Living Color to drums, but the point is, it's the music. It's the music that connects all these different events of your life.
Yeah.
You know how they say everyone has a soundtrack of their life?
Hmm.
If I show you all these albums that are on my wall, that was my soundtrack. You know?
That's amazing. Man, I could, and I know, we talked before this. I could skip the scripted questions that I have and just have you tell stories because that
Oh, I'm sorry, man. All right, you
no,
didn't have
no,
questions you want to ask.
no, this is, I mean, this is perfect because I love hearing, and this is probably going to be the first episode that I post as a video because
Oh, cool.
I haven't done any of our past ones, but you've shown so much, in just the few minutes that we've been talking, but the I want people to see the passion that I'm seeing from you right now. Like
But
because that's unmatched. I mean, that's
but here's the thing: if you would have said, "Hey, Kevin Feeney just wants you to, I don't know, sing a song," listen, I will support that guy because I've seen him literally make. So I was already in when it said creative percussion. I was like,
yeah,
I'm in. I don't even care.
yeah,
The only thing I had to figure out was the time, and the schedule.
right,
Um, but yeah, man, it's like it's cool because you've already spoke to Justin. We're talking about Kevin, and these guys both made an impact in my life, and we were just kind of we just met passing. You know what
hmm
I mean? Speaking about Justin, he's a little younger than me. Actually, Justin's younger enough to be like my son. But
well, I am too since you told me your son's age.
right, right. So, but with Justin, and I won't stay too long, but I see talent early on. And when I saw this kid play, I remember back in the day, guitar center drum offs were a big thing.
Yeah.
And I never really entered it, to win. It was never about winning. I just wanted to get some exposure and just network with a bunch of drummers.
Right.
And I remember the first time I did it, I just kind of did it by chance. But as I started to watch the other drummers and prepare, I realized it didn't become anything that was going to make a difference in your life, because I think a lot of drummers put a pressure to win their competition. You have to win
Mm-hmm.
it. And if you put that pressure on yourself, it's not fun anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I had so much more fun just networking with other drummers. And it wasn't about trying to be the best, but when Justin got up there and played, I'm like, wow, this kid is like half my age, but he's got something that I don't. And
Yeah.
that's how I look at it. I don't look like, oh man, I'll never. So I just got close to him and said, yo, I said, I love the way you play. I said, tell me about what's your background, what's your influences. Oh, I studied with this guy, Dave Vincenzo. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, really? So the next week, I emailed Dave Vincenzo. I said, hey, I met one of your students, blah, 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 have a drum off. I said, this is my background. And he's like, yep, I got come in. You can come in this week. So just that meeting with Justin linked me up with another guy that, again, totally changed my perspective of the
Mm-hmm.
instrument. And I don't take any of that lightly. I've been teaching this out of my basement well over 20 years now. And some of my students are now, they got families and they got their own kids. And the thing that blows my mind is that they will still reach out to me. They'll
Right.
hit me up and they all call me Davis. Say, hey, Davis, I'm home from college. Or hey, Davis, I'm in town. Let's hang. And to me, that's the win.
Absolutely.
Because you don't realize it when you're in it. You're making an impact on these people. Some of these kids I've known since they were in fourth grade, and now they're married, and they come back and tell me that I made a difference, and that's, to me, that's the win. And I say that now because there was a time where I thought I have to make a living with this. I have to pay the bills, and if I don't
Mm-hmm.
do this, I'm going to die. But that's when I come back to the difference between your gift and your talent.
Yeah.
Right? Your gift, and I'm going to quote Steve Harvey because that's my dude. He says, your gift is what you get paid for, but your
Yeah.
calling is what you're made for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's facts. And it took me a long time. As drummers, your body is part of your livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
So if you suffer tennis elbow like I have, and I talked to DeCenzo, who would tell me that, when he was in his teens, he had such poor technique that he actually ended up messing up his forearms, and he suffered from tendonitis for years. So he had to develop rituals in
Mm-hmm.
his disciplines so he wouldn't hurt himself anymore. So if this is your livelihood and this is how you feed your family and pay your bills, and all of a sudden you get hurt, you know what I'm saying? There's like
Yeah.
it's scary, you know.
Well,
It's
and
when the
even
thing that you when the and I quote so many drummers because I'm such a fan of the instrument, but I'm still a student of the instrument. And I love Tommy Igo. I think he's probably one of the most articulate educators out there. And he says when your hobby or the thing you love becomes your job, it gives you a different perspective of, hey, this is fun, to, oh man, I gotta pay the bills. And just take the pandemic for example. No one, I just got a message from Justin Collin just popped up. No one knew the pandemic was going to happen, but anyone who makes their living in the arts, whether it's theater or acting, or it all took a hit. So it's like, how
right.
do I monetize what I do where I don't have the audience that I used to? And that's why I have all these cameras set up now, because I have like, all right, I got to be able to reach the same people from their house. So,
Yeah, and that's made a difference in all of our lives. I mean, I went from playing 150 shows a year to, you know, playing. I mean, I still play on the worship team at my church,
yep,
but I'm reaching the same people every Sunday, as
sure.
opposed to reaching different people 4 or 5 days a week.
Let me ask you this, because I mean, I've played for my church for years, and
Hmm.
it's weird because I believe, and I talk openly about, because God has always, for me, I got to speak for myself. God has always had His hand over me,
Yes.
because there is no way you can take a kid who cannot read a note, right? Who
Hmm.
doesn't have a college degree, but managed to do this
Absolutely.
just because I believed that that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that wasn't me, that was him.
Yeah.
So, but here's what I want to ask you. So, being a church musician, there's always this gray area where is it a job or is it part of my worship? Or is it one and the same? Because I've struggled with that for years. I would struggle where church that I was with, and I love the people, I love the congregation, but it started to feel like it was a job more than a worship experience. So I don't know if you can speak on that a little bit.
So I have never felt of it as a job because it has been my calling. Like I said, when I was 18, I felt a calling to be in the music ministry, and I've done it in different capacities. But I had an experience about 2 years ago where I was in probably the worst situation I had been in my entire life. I was struggling financially, I was struggling spiritually. I did not know what to do, and I felt like God had let me down. But he never does. And so I was out on my porch one day, and I just said, "You know what, God? I'm tired of trying to manufacture my own miracle. So I'm giving this over to you. Point blank, this is yours. I'm not touching it. And when you see fit to pull me out of this, then I'll accept that. But I'm not going to try and manufacture my own miracle anymore," because that's what I was doing. And so,
You were getting in the way of your own blessing.
exactly. So that was on a Tuesday. That following Thursday, we had what we call First Thursday, which is where all of our campuses come together at our main campus, and we have an extended worship service, and then our pastor preaches a message. But it's all four of our campuses together, instead of on Sunday all four of them are separate, hearing from different campus pastors. So something had happened with my pastor and I that gave me that inkling to know, all right, God is speaking this through my pastor. And so this is God's way of saying, look, this is me taking care of what I needed to take care of for you. So I went to step on the stage to do our worship set. I don't remember stepping on the stage. I don't remember playing a note on that stage. And the next thing that I remember is stepping off the stage.
Huh. Okay.
But I mean, it was just a full surrender moment. Like surrendering to, all right, God has spoken to me. This is what he has told me to do. Now I'm letting all of it go. I'm surrendering it all. And it was just in that moment I had probably the most spiritual experience I had ever had. So I don't see it as a job at all. I didn't see it as a job before that, but I especially haven't seen it as a job after that.
Right, and I received that, and thanks for sharing that testimony, because and not to have this turn into a sermon, but
Right.
I fully believe that the word says, for any man to come to God, if you believe, you first have to believe that he is. You know what I'm saying? So I've had so many personal conversations with students here, and it's interesting because I never thought that I was going to be a counselor,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term. But here, for some reason, I've had students confide some very deep personal stuff with me, sitting right there in that chair.
Yeah.
And I realized that it wasn't even about me; it was about the spirit they saw through me, that they felt comfortable. So what I'm saying is, I do not take credit for all of the blessings that have happened here. You know what I mean? And I also have to speak that I didn't get here by myself. If I didn't have a a solid relationship or a solid wife, to help me achieve these goals, because we don't do anything by ourselves. We'd like to say, yes, this is what I built and I did it myself. No,
Yeah.
you're mistaken, because I look at, although Kevin is the brain of Creative Percussion, Sherry's right there with him. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So it's like, we don't do any of this by ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think once you can find that support system, and let's be honest, what we do for a living, it's not easy. It does not make relationships easy. It does not make your relationship with your kids easy. It makes it more difficult in some issues.
Yeah.
Because you're away. You work an unconventional job. This is not an 8 to 5 gig for those of us who do it full time. I just recently went back to work, into the workforce on top of doing this, just because my daughter's leaving for college in September. And saw the bill for the college she's going to. I'm like, all right, I might need a little more. You know what I'm saying? But listen, I am so happy and blessed that she's going.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like I get to live it through her. After she's going to go study musical theater at Pace University in New York City. Yeah. And yeah, I'm just overjoyed. But, I'm glad that I'm still able to do this and help her live her dream.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I don't mind sharing this. And I told her, listen, honey, I know that I was not always available, when I should have been or could have been, because I was working. I was doing things to help keep the lights on. And I know when your kid's young, they don't really see it that way. But now that she's a young woman, we can have these adult conversations and know that it was always for the greater good. It wasn't that I didn't want to. And you can never get time back. And I say that one of my buddies, he just moved from the East Coast out to Idaho. His family moved out there. And he's like, Charles, man, you just got to start living life because you got more years behind you than you do in front of you.
Yeah.
You can't keep looking behind you to see what didn't happen or what you didn't get. You got to live life right now. And I'm glad this worked out, because at first I was looking at my schedule and oh man, I'm not going to be able to do it. But I'm so glad that we were able to still line this up. This is great.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, I am.
You had
as
some
well.
questions you wanted to ask, because I can talk about life forever. So.
Well, so here's what I want to propose to you. I would love to continue to hear stories, because like knowing that you studied under Mike Mangini, knowing that who is one of my influences, knowing that you studied
awesome.
under just the drummers that you studied under, and knowing that you've been with Creative Percussion from the beginning, so you've basically seen Kevin build this company from scratch. So you've seen things that a lot of the people who I've interviewed before haven't seen. I mean, aside from Justin, who saw some, prototype stuff because he was with Feeney Drums before.
Well, you mentioned Feeney Drums. Check this out. So the drum that Justin had is very similar to this one.
Uh-huh.
You can see it.
Oh,
so
wow.
I saw Justin's drum.
Yeah.
So this one's mine.
Uh-huh.
And there's the old logo. Here, I'll give you a better camera angle so you can see it. So this is a 13 by 6, I think. So you get a better shot of it there.
Oh, wow.
And he makes it exactly how you want it. I told him I wanted the crucifix on there to show people, where my faith was. And and listen, here's the other thing. We're just talking about being in the faith. The realization I had to come to is that whether you are Catholic, Protestant, Baptist, it doesn't matter to me what you are. You are not, nowhere in the word does it say you have to be perfect. Yeah. And I thought for a long time, if I didn't curse and I didn't drink and I didn't smoke and everything would be good. I'm here to tell you, none of that's true. You know what I mean? It's like, and I seriously, I put pressure on myself to try to be this auto version of that, and it's impossible. You can't carry that. You just have to be. I'm trying to be a better version of myself every day.
Yeah.
Do I have my flaws? Absolutely.
Right.
Can I be passive aggressive sometimes? Yes. You know what I'm saying? I understand these things about me. Listen, once you turn 50, I'm like, all right, I don't got time for just nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Let me just If I offend you, bring it to my attention. I will do my best not to offend you.
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna hold it. So, see, I feel like I know you, bro. I feel like I could literally sit here and talk to you all day. All right,
I
so
feel the same
this
way.
was the this was the first drum that I got from Kevin, right?
Yeah.
And then this is the one that I bugged him for like 5 years. So check this one. This was Kevin's baby, and he finally let me buy it from him.
Oh man.
This is a 13-inch steel drum, right? Right.
Oh
and
wow.
See yeah, man. And this is the only one in the world, and I have it.
Oh.
Yep. So this is my little. So if he ever sees this video,
I'll make sure he does.
Every time I went to the shop, I'm like, Kevin, I look at him and go, "When are you gonna let me have that drum?" He's like, "Nah." He's like, "I can't let that one go." He's like, "I put so much, blood, sweat, and tears into it."
Right.
And one year, he's like, "You want the drum?" I'm like, "I'll be right up." so yeah, so I'm gonna hold on to that one.
So my proposition to you is I want to make this a 2-part series.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop this organic conversation that we're having because
Sure.
I'm enjoying your stories. So I want to do this part as just basically a storytelling. Tell me about your experiences, whatever you want to talk about, your experiences with Kevin, all the unique interactions that you've had with him. And then I would love to bring you on for a part 2, which would be where I, just kind of ask those scripted questions that I have.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to break up this organic conversation that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that because it shouldn't. I know there should be some pointed questions about the
Yeah.
products, and that's why when you sent me the message, I'm like, well, should I have like,
Yeah.
Creative Percussion? Because I have a banner over there
Yeah.
in my other room. My teaching studio is actually split up into 2 rooms. So this is the drum set side.
Mm-hmm.
Then over there is I have the marching percussion side. So I got a marching snare over there, and I got a set of tenor. That it's funny. I had no plans of ever becoming a marching band drummer.
Yeah.
I just think at the time they needed someone to step in who had experience, and I'd never run a drum line before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking back now. I started that in 2003. It's 2021.
Yeah.
So that's a long time, you know. But yeah, so I do have more stories about Kevin and I, but again, it was very organic. We just, I think we either met at a club or whatever. Because actually, the fun story is, I introduced Kevin. I think this was the beginning of where Creative Percussion kind of started to take off. I introduced Kevin to a guy named Josh Mims, who was a big drum corps guy, and he had lived out west and moved this way, and he and his partner were coming up with a small company called Rich Sticks.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Josh and Kevin happened to come to a gig to see me play.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was downtown Manchester, New Hampshire, and I basically made that meeting happen. Now, I don't take credit for what happened afterwards, but I made the connection, and I said, "Hey, Kevin makes his own drums." I said, this dude makes his own sticks, and
Yeah.
they started talking. And I remember shortly thereafter they rented a warehouse somewhere up north. I can't remember, probably near Exeter, New Hampshire. I don't even remember, but there was a little warehouse, and I remember it was like 300 degrees in there.
Yeah.
Kevin was upstairs in the attic of this warehouse building stuff.
Yeah.
I was cursed, but I didn't say. He's up in the warehouse building stuff, and I go up there, and he's sweating bullets. He's like, "Charles, check out these beaters," and "Charles, check this out." And I'm like, and I'm holding this stuff. Going, I don't understand how you come up with this.
Right.
He's like, he told me one time he just sees it in a dream. He'll dream it, and he wakes up, and then he makes it.
Wow. Yeah,
That's
I got the very last beehive beater that he made in my first order, and that thing never leaves my kit.
You like the one? I have. We might have to make this a 2-parter because I literally have a box of prototypes.
Oh
man.
man.
I have the first beater that was made out of coal. It looked like a big lump of coal,
Yeah.
and it was so powerful it could go through your bass drum head if you were really hitting it. I have the first original black coal one. I have the first felt beater that he made, where he made the big marshmallow one.
Yeah.
I literally have seen every version of all these things that he's made. And that's what I was saying. I jumped around, but when I was in the wedding band in 2018, I had suffered a herniated disc a while ago. I was healing, sitting for a while playing was uncomfortable. So he designed me a stool that had the center cut out. So when I sit on it, hold on, I'm going to show you. Now, actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to show you this because I may have the only one. So, but here's the thing about Kevin. If you tell him, I don't know if I'm supposed to show this, so maybe you can edit it out. So this stool, you can't tell, looks like a regular stool.
Yeah.
Center, there's nothing in the center.
Huh.
That's all. I'm not going to tell you how he made it.
Right. Yeah.
So when I sit, it basically contours to my bottom side.
Yeah.
And it takes all the pressure off your tailbone.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, I don't know if these are on the market, but I got one.
I'm gonna send him a text right now and see how I can get one.
Yeah. So I could literally go on forever. So what else did you want to know about some of the products or how they?
Yeah, just talk
You
about.
want me to just keep talking about myself?
Yeah, either way, I mean, I'm enjoying just how this is going. I mean,
Well,
just talk about. I guess I don't think this is really something that you covered yet. How you came to build a relationship with Kevin that you did, like how y'all met, and
yeah,
well,
so
you did. I think you did cover how y'all met.
Well, I can't at this moment. I can't remember the exact meeting, but I do know that. Oh, it had to be a Guitar Center. That's what it was. I had to run into him at Guitar Center because I think we both were going in support of Justin.
Okay, yeah,
Justin was playing in the competition with the Kevin mini drum, and we just kind of started talking. And I'm always down because I remember the first time I did the Guitar Center drum off, I think the judges were Vinny DeMeo, who played with Jody Watley and a bunch of other famous people. Ron Stewart, who played with Joe Perry.
Yeah.
And they had these, real famous guys. And there was one other drummer. And at the end of the night, I'll never forget, I'm sitting there and we're padding it up, just Ron Stewart, Vinny DeMeo, and myself. And, and it's funny, you can always tell the drummers who had marching experience and drummers who just are drum set players. Not that there's anything wrong with either one, but I have found in my experience, the drum corps guys usually have the best chops.
Right.
But they can't necessarily play a drum set. You know what I mean? Because I've had guys in my day, when I first joined the first competitive level drum corps, I was a little intimidated because these guys were playing stuff that I couldn't even comprehend. Right?
Yeah.
My hands were moving so fast. I was like, what is going on? But I knew that if I wanted to get down with that, I had to put the time in. So, as I told you before, I started playing at a very young age, and I only knew one grip, which was match grip. But then when I wanted to go to the snare line, I remember my instructor told me, he's like, well, if you're playing like this, I need you to flip over. And to go from this after 16 or 17, going from match to traditional after 17 years,
right,
was the longest summer of my life. I was so frustrated because I wanted so bad to be part of that snare line.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like they were light years ahead of me. And I remember I had a drumming buddy, Craig Tremack, another drummer you guys got to check out. He and I used to work for a company called Christian Delivery and Chair. So all summer we would go to different venues, different concerts and residents, set up tents and tables, and we would sit in the truck on the ride from like here to Vermont, and we would just pad it up either on the dashboard. And the more I did that, it started to feel natural. Right?
Yeah.
But to my point, because I have so many stories in my head. So I'm sitting at Guitar Center, and we're padding it up, And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these guys are gonna blow the doors off me because they're famous. And then once we really got into it, I'm like, oh, okay, I can hold my own here.
Yeah.
So I'm saying all that to say it's never about who's better. It's like you can look at someone's hands and go, oh, look what he's doing. It's a little different than what I'm doing. So I'm going to find out how he does that.
Mm-hmm.
It's never about, well, I'm going to kick your butt. I was nervous playing with these guys because of the background. So that story is to not second guess yourself, just believe in yourself and your abilities and just play. Because you can always learn something from someone who has more experience and someone who has less experience. We all have our own story to tell.
So what got you into because I know you teach drum set, but what got you into doing the marching band thing as far as teaching
That's
goes?
a great question, and it's funny because this is always the drum set was what I did naturally. The marching band thing was something I had to learn. It's almost like it was something that I was thrusted into, and I never really had any plans of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
From what I remember is I had been a member of the Spartans Drum and Bugle Corps probably from 88 until 90.
Yeah.
And when you do DCI, I don't know if you've ever done drum corps, but usually you age out by the time you're 20.
Right.
And then after that, you either get a side gig, side hustle, either teching for a drum line,
mm-hmm.
Or you get a job. Because you're never going to walk into a drum corps that's already established and get the caption head gig. It doesn't happen that way. You got to kind of work your way up through the ranks. But I never had a desire to do that. So I had two of the guys that came up under me in the Spartans who went off to surrounding towns and they started doing their own drum line. And one time I got a call from one of the younger dudes, and he said, "Hey, we need someone to help Nashua High School, and I don't really have a lot of experience doing it, so I recommended that you do it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, let me go check it out, see what it's about." I literally just went to check it out. I had no intentions of doing it, and I've been there ever since. But the thing is, I had a lot of knowledge about rudiments and marching and posture and all that stuff because I've done it, but never running the program. And that's what thrusted me into learning to write and compose and do all the things that I kept telling myself that I couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never coming back to God for a second. God puts everything in you that you need. He's just waiting for you to let it come out. Just you have to nurture those things that are in there.
Mm-hmm.
I just took a brand new position at my job, totally out of my comfort zone. This is the first full-time job I've had in 20 years. Some people can't say that, but literally, it's the first time I've gone back to work because I've done this and a side hustle for the longest time. And now with this new job, out of my comfort zone, but everything I need is in me. I just have to work at it. Nothing comes free, so you have to say back to the marching band story. I figured that I knew a couple hand exercises, but I had to start coming up with my own curriculum, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I had to start coming up with my own beats and my own exercise and my own technique things. So where did I start? I started here.
Yeah.
I would play beats on the kit, and then because no one taught me how to do this, I would listen to music and I would listen to not just the drum beat. I would listen to what's the guitarist playing, what is the bass player playing, and then I would take all of those things and separate them on the staff: snare line, tenor line, bass line.
Yeah.
And I've written beats to like Outkast, New Edition, and the thing is, the kids at the time, they had no idea what they were playing, and then I would play the track and then go, oh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My best drumline beat to date was a song by Fred Hammond. And if Fred Hammond ever hears this, I will let him know. He has a song called He Lives. And it's a live version. Calvin Rogers, another one of my heroes. I'll get him a shout out. I got his sticks. Calvin Rogers was the drummer.
That's all good.
And the beat that spoke to me wasn't even the drum beat. It was the guitar riff. So I composed an entire cadence around the guitar riff.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the guitar, and here's the thing about it. I don't have the um, the music theory
Mm-hmm.
behind what goes on in my head. I can hear melodies and create based on what I'm hearing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Now I have a piano sitting out there in my family room that we bought for my daughter when she was taking piano lessons,
Mm-hmm.
and I have the motor skills for it. I can't play. Like if you show me something, I'm gonna mimic what you just showed me.
Yeah.
I can tell you
Yeah.
what I did. You know what I mean? So anyway, so when I was writing this piece, the guitar riff spoke to me, so I wrote that and I put it on the tenor drums.
Mm-hmm.
It was just this repetitive pattern. So I had the tenors play that. So long story short, I get the whole thing into finale and I play it back, and it made me emotional because I was like, that just came out of my head.
Yeah.
No one said do this, do that, do this. So the one time that it even became more real to me that this is what I was supposed to do, I presented it to the drum line. They all learned it, and then the first day we played it for the rest of the band. They play the whole cadence, and they get done, and everyone claps. And out of the blue, some little girl in the front says, "Hey, Mr. Davis, what inspired that?" I was like, "What?" Because no one's ever asked me that.
Yeah.
And I froze for a second, like deer in the headlights, because I didn't know what to say. No one's ever cared about how I came up with it. And I told them the story. I said it was a song about the night that Jesus was crucified.
Yeah.
And it told the whole story, how he went to the cross and he bled and died. And it said on the third day, he brought the rhythm of life. And that's what I named the cadence,
Mm-hmm.
called the rhythm of life. And it was all based on that guitar riff that I heard at the beginning of the song.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
I love that. I don't know if you listen to much Neil Morse.
I think I know of the, I don't not familiar with all the music, but I've heard the name.
So he was one of the founders of Spock's Beard, which was a big progressive rock band, and he left Spock's because he felt a calling, and he did a solo album called Testimony, which was just this spiritual testimony.
Yeah.
And but just recently he did a piece on the crucifixion, an entire album on the crucifixion called Jesus Christ the Exorcist.
Mm.
So when you said that, it kind of reminded me of that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'll have to send you a link to it or something.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is I didn't realize how deep this connection to music through your instrument was.
Yeah.
And again, I don't take credit for all of it. I just started to. I think I heard Justin say in his podcast that you just have to learn to listen and be open to the possibilities.
Yeah.
I've never been the type of drum instructor that says, "Well, this is my way, and we're going to do it my way." No, I want to hear what the students have to say.
Yeah.
I have this one young lady who, to this day, is the baddest snare drummer I've ever seen. She used to sit right over here for many years, from middle school up to high school.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason she had this drive, and I won't mention her name, but she knows what I'm talking about. She had this just internal drive because she's entering a sport that's, come on, let's be honest, it's male dominated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was the only female in the line, and she's coming in as an underclassman, and she felt like she had to prove herself. And by the senior year, dude, she was playing stuff that I couldn't even play. I'm
That's
like,
amazing.
okay. You know what I mean? But what I tell the students that see her play now is I don't take credit for what she did. I just helped her. I just gave her a direction and a focus, and she focused the hell out of it. You know what I mean? And now she'll text me. I'll get texts from her just randomly. She texts me back maybe 2 months ago, and she calls me Davis. She's like, "Guess what?" I'm like, "What?" She's like, "I just made center snare for the UMass Amherst drum line." And I got emotional. I was like, "What?
Yeah.
That's crazy." Because I remember when she used to sit here, and now she's like top dog.
Yeah.
That's a huge accomplishment.
That's absolutely amazing. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, please believe I do not take credit for that, but what I do feel proud of is that they feel the, the need to let me know
Mm-hmm.
how they're doing.
Right.
That's huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
That's
really is.
to have that effect on someone. And I don't take that lightly. I seriously don't. Um, one of the coolest things that's happened to me is back in 2015, we got, you know how drum lines have those drum slips?
Mm-hmm.
And we've had this high school's had the same drums forever. But on that particular night, we had just put the new drums on. It was like the Salem band show, and the drums were looking sharp. And it just happened to be my birthday, right? It was my birthday that night. And I tell you, these kids played like I've never seen them play before. Everything was just tight and it looked good. And then at the end, they took a drum head and they signed it and they all put their names on it. And
Yeah.
just a really awesome, awesome moment for me. And to some people, that's not a big deal, but just that they really laid it down
Mm-hmm.
for me that day. That was really
That's awesome. Yeah, how you fell into your marching gig is kind of how I fell into the one that I had recently. My wife and I visited a uh, visited a band that she had been working with. She had been working with some of the brass instruments, and the instructor was like, "You know, my drum line's kind of rough right now."
Yeah.
And she was like, could you, just kind of listen in, don't let anybody know that you're listening, but just kind of listen in and kind of give them ideas. And so I, just kind of gave them critiques at the end of it. And she said, well, why don't you come on and help mentor them? So I was with them for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to kind of fall into something like that, without any real expectation. A lot of times when you go into a job, it's, okay, you need to do this, this, and this, and it has to be done in this order, in this way. And with
Right.
this, it was just like, hey, what do they need to do better? What do they need to do different?
Right.
No expectations or anything. So,
Well, that's a good point because as a self-employed, drum instructor, musician, I don't have a curriculum when students come down here. I used to think, okay, well, they have to have syncopation and they have to have stick control and they have to have
Yeah.
all of these books that were great tools
Yeah.
for all the people that I looked up to, but technology has evolved. We don't need, and no disrespect to stick control or syncopation. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, you don't necessarily have to take that route. What you should do, and this is for all the teachers, is this is what I've just taught, just through experience, is you have to meet them where they are. There is no one size fits all.
right.
And I say that because I told you I couldn't read for many years. And I will give my wife props. We sat down with this book, and I still have it, so I'm going to show you this.
Okay.
I have the same book. I've had this book for 30 years. I'm surprised the cover is still on it. One day, I went to a local store on Daniel Webster Highway. At the time, I think it was EU Wurlitzer. It's not even a store anymore. It was way before Guitar Center even came.
Mhm.
This was the book, Understanding Rhythm.
Yeah.
And the first page on it was the note value chart. And I still have it to this day. And that's my writing.
Oh, yeah.
Highlight.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did, I'll never forget. We sat down, and this is before my wife was my wife. She likes to tell this story. I taught him how to read. So I remember because I didn't understand math on it.
Mm-hmm.
I understood. I can feel that, right?
Yeah.
I understood pulse. I understood feel. I could do all that naturally. But when it came to putting what's on the paper
Mm-hmm.
to match, that's where I struggled. And it was that book, whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note, right?
Yeah.
And then once you get it, it's like, oh, it's just math. It made my math better because I struggled in math. It made the understanding of it made math easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was I had many beginnings
Mhm.
as I was coming up. Getting involved with drum corps, and then learning more about the craft, and taking lessons and learning is so important. I'm not saying you have to go to a university.
Mhm.
Had I had the opportunity to do it all, I definitely would have gone, and get some type of certificate. But again, there is not a one size fits all. Most of the drummers that I idolized went to school to study drums, and they left before they even finished because they
Yeah.
had a gig. So it's like you have to choose your own path. There is not one way to do this. Would I
Yeah.
like to find other ways of building my brand and building a business? Absolutely. That's why I watch YouTube videos and I network with other entrepreneurs to say, hey, how do you do this? Kevin has inspired me so much because he's who inspired me to start branding my own stuff. Right? So I already have my own T-shirts and I have my own signature stick maybe. So all these things. Speaking of networking, so about 3 years ago, I started a percussion ensemble at the Boys and Girls Club. Let me back up. Because of my involvement with the Spartans Drum and Bugle Corps, about 10 years ago, they asked me if I would start a drum line for the Boys Club. And this would give the kids in the inner city the opportunity to learn how to play or get involved with music, because normally they wouldn't get involved at school because they're too cool or they just didn't feel confident to go join band. But if I bring this opportunity to them, they'd be more apt to do it.
Yeah.
So since then, I was able to build a percussion ensemble where we had, marching drums. And again, it was never expected for the kids to play and be competitive. We just wanted them to get involved.
Right.
After so many years of doing that, the budget wasn't there to keep the program going. So I came to Kevin and I say, listen, I have another opportunity to do something with these kids, but I would need to do it in a way that it's not the marching drums, because that can be intimidating. You got this 10-year-old kid carrying this big snare drum. It's intimidating. I said, what if we came up with a way to, and I don't know how I got on the word of buckets, right? I said, well, you know how you see bucket drummers? What if we did something like that? Now, this has not been released yet, and I have the prototype over there, but I'm not going to show you. So the plan is we designed a bucket that does everything.
Yeah.
And if you think about the drummers you see in the streets of New York and Boston, they have 2, 3, 4, 5 buckets, and they got things all over the ground. We figured out a way, using that mind of Kevin Feeney, to put it all in one package.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty dope, and it has some of his signature things going on. So that's going to be coming. Now, we did a test run at the Boys and Girls Club, and they went nuts when they saw this thing, because I had to demonstrate, how do you use this? So that's something that's going to be coming up. And that's what it's about. It's like, you have an idea, right?
Yeah.
Network with someone who can help you bring that to fruition. So together, this is something he and I are going to work on together. We're going to get this thing out to the masses and just see how it does. And I think it's going to be great. When you hear it, it's very deceiving. You would think I'm playing a full kit when you see this thing.
Huh.
Pretty cool.
I've kind of got a picture of it in my mind just because I know kind of how Kevin's mind works. Yeah. Just by seeing some different things that he's done. And he'll send, which he does this with other artists I know, but he'll send videos of, I've got this on mine, what do you think about it? Because he loves our feedback on his stuff. Yep. So that's awesome. So what is, if you could go back and say, this was the specific time that I knew, like, Creative Percussion and Kevin and this family, this is where I belong, because you talked about calling earlier. So what was the moment where you knew, okay, this is a company that I belong to, like, this is family to me?
Yeah, I think that it was more of an organic thing, because immediately from the first time you meet him, he feels like he's someone you want to hang with. That's pretty much how it was for he and I. We both just happened to be drummers, but he didn't know me from Adam. It's just, in the spiritual realm, it says your spirit will bear witness.
Yeah.
With the spirit. That's kind of how it was. It's like we just clicked, and we were into the same type of music, same type of bands. Um, I remember seeing his band Muggsy back in the day before I even knew who he was. You know what I mean? And there was just this network of people, or drummers, I should say, that we would run into each other either at the music store. But the funny thing is, you'd never really get to see each other play because everyone was gigging. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, I'll catch you when I come through. But when it came down to the actual products, because he's able to take things that you can find around the house. Now, again, I don't, have you ever seen his popcorn drum?
I have, yeah.
Okay. I have the original one. Check this out. So this one, when I saw this, I was like, what the heck is that? So this is the first one that he made. Because there's the logo on the top.
Right.
And
yeah, the new one has the it's an attack drum head, so it doesn't even have a logo like that on it anymore.
Right.
For those who haven't actually seen what has been released.
Right. And I'd never in a million years thought, like, what am I going to do with the popcorn? And then when I started bringing this to the kids where I was working with them, because I didn't want to necessarily teach them how to be a drummer. I just wanted them to feel music, just feel something. And not everyone knows how to hold sticks. So I'm like, here, take this, shake it.
Yeah.
Hit it. And then, you know, it could, what Kevin said when I went to the shop, he's like, it can be a drum, it can be a rain stick, it can be a shaker, it can be whatever you want. You just have to be, it says it right, you have to be creative.
Yeah, exactly.
Come up with it. So again, I could literally go on all day. I have not seen anyone do the stuff that he does. And yeah, there's going to be some negative people out there that are going to be haters and say stupid stuff. And
yeah,
I remember one comment, you know, someone said online, I said, Kevin, you know what, you just got to, I said, it's expected because they're saying those things because they can't do what you do.
Yeah.
They're just
you beat them to the punch.
Think of it first.
Exactly.
You know, so yeah, and it's going to happen because he's actually doing something that hasn't been done before, and now he's seeing the fruits of that. You know? Yeah, there hasn't been one thing that he's shown me, and I'm not gone. And I know because he shows me, and I just shake my head. I'm like, I don't even know how you figured that out.
Yeah.
Right. I did the same program I did at the Boys and Girls Club. I said, Kev, I need stuff. I need a couple things that the kids can just hold on to, right? And he came up with like little bowling balls, and he took all these things that kids can find in the house and just turned them into instruments. It was just crazy.
So was that the idea, or is that how the baseball shaker and the golf shakers came about? Was that before that, or was that after that?
I think he already had the concept. We just needed to get it in the hands of someone to see how it does. It was almost like the Boys Club gave us the opportunity to kind of see if they were going to gravitate to it.
Yeah.
And I've got pictures, and they would do this thing at the Boys Club, like every Thanksgiving, they would have like a day of thanks dinner, and they would decorate the entire auditorium. And I was in charge of putting together a demonstration of all the kids. So I had all the kids up on stage, you know, with their instruments and their buckets, and it was a good time, and everyone loved it. And the reaction they got from the crowd, because I could have brought in a bunch of marching drums, but that's not really that original.
Right.
So everything that they were playing on was made by hand. That's what made it cool.
Yeah, and that's what I love about his products. Like I said, I have, you know, the last Beehive beater that was made, but I also have a couple of other beaters, and they're all, like you said, handmade.
Yeah.
Same thing with the stacks. Same thing with I have all 4 baseball shakers.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's, you know, he doesn't have this production line and this assembly line and all this that's, you know, spitting out, you know, all these things in mass. I mean, he literally, you say, hey, I need this, this, and this, and he makes it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another difference. I mean,
my hope for him is that, you know, some investor, you know, would just get behind what this guy's doing
Yeah.
and help it become help him become more of a household name. That is my and I told him it's coming, even to the point that he's at now. I kept saying it's coming. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to start catching on. He's already had write-ups in Drummer,
Yeah.
so the recognition is coming. So sometimes I had a conversation with a really good friend last night. He's actually on the West Coast and super talented guy. He could literally, this guy, and the point I'm getting at, I know I'm making it up, but he could have been an athlete, he could have been a singer, he could have been a dancer, he could have done all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But he's already gifted in, and he has found his niche in just building and renovating vans so people can live a van life, live in a van or a trailer. That's what he does. He's found peace in it. And the thing is, what you set out to do doesn't mean it stops. You just may not get to the destination at the time you thought you would.
Right.
It doesn't matter when you get there as long as you arrive.
Yeah.
No one can determine that for you, but you and God if you believe. And I always say if you believe, because I know everyone doesn't believe it, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't judge him either way.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, what is your favorite story that you tell? If unless you've already told it already, your favorite story that you tell somebody. So somebody's like, "Oh man, you're a drummer." You know, I love hearing musicians' stories. What's your favorite story that you tell somebody off the street?
About drumming or just about
Just your experience. Yeah.
there's so many. It's so many. Well, I think some of my best experiences, if I'm being honest, because I'm a student of the craft, it's when something is brought to your attention or you have this epiphany
Mm-hmm.
that what we do as musicians, it really is a gift. It's a privilege. It's like
Yeah.
we don't. It's not. You don't have a right, right? So, and
Mm-hmm.
here's what I mean. So, I have more respect than I can even put into words for Dave DeCenzo because, first, he's just a real dude. He's a real person, like someone I want to hang with. Like, I could just literally just sit at his feet and just listen to him talk.
Yeah.
Because he just makes you feel, at the time, like you're the most important person in the room, and all he wants to do is share his knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one time in a lesson, because I wrote all my lessons down and I videotaped them because I didn't want to miss a word that this man said. And one time he says, everything you do on the drums has nothing to do with your limbs. Think about that for a second.
Huh.
That just made my head just explode because you think about it, we all play so many different patterns and rhythms and repetitive motion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he says all the stuff that you play on this instrument has nothing to do with your limbs. It has to do with the information that's processed here. And it's then vocalized, right?
Yeah.
Because for me, and I truly teach, and I don't take credit for this method. This is Dave's method.
Yeah.
I have to get the information from here to here. And what is between here and here? Your voice.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest revelation for me because then it changed where I could control what I was doing. The first thing that blew my mind, because we're talking about Mangini, and I went through this phase where I thought I had to play like Mike to be a good drummer. And I had figured out, I was in it deep. I was figuring out how to do playing in 5 and do clusters of 11
Yeah.
while I was playing in 5, right?
Yeah.
And I was deep in it, and then I realized, like, where am I going to use this?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And it was cool. It's a cool party trick if you can do that. But
Yeah.
I was not in the situation where I could actually use that information. I needed things that were applicable now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got with Dave, he's like, you just have to figure out what kind of drummer do you want to be? What do you want to say? And really break it down into words. He's like, rhythms are words to me. And if you can start to speak the language, then it's going to flow.
Mm-hmm.
And my first, I can't even make this up, my first 5 or 6 lessons with Dave, I didn't even touch the drums. I I did not play a note for
Yeah.
like the first couple of months. It
Huh.
was all understanding. Check this out. I'll never forget this. And it sounds like all my my stories about Dave, but seriously, his teaching changed my life. I brought all my videos one time because my wife was trying to help me, get some videos together and maybe post them on YouTube or whatever. So I brought a bunch of videos of me doing competitions. And we sat in his living room and I popped the DVD in and we're watching. And he's digging and he's checking me out. I was like, oh, there's that Mangini stuff. Because I had this thing worked out where I was like, I was going to move it around the drums doing this weird pattern. And then we get done watching the videos. He's like, listen, man. He's like, you have it, right? He's like, your chops sound good. Your hands sound good. He's like, but you're playing with your limbs. He's like, I don't hear your heart. And again, my head just went.
Yeah.
You feel me? So I think what I've learned is we don't have to, yes, do you have to be disciplined for this instrument? Absolutely. You have to work on your time. You got to work on your pocket and your dexterity. I get all that. But at the end of the day, I know that's an overused phrase. It's how does the instrument make you feel? How do people feel when they play with you? That's much more important than me playing, playing in 5/4 and I can do hit every 11th note.
Yeah.
No one's gonna know that's the 11th note. But I do think every time you sit on the throne, that person that's in the front row, yeah, they're gonna be able to see and hear what you're doing. But I'm thinking about the person back there. I want them to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched myself back after Dave had that conversation, I watched myself back and I realized I didn't look like I was having fun. I looked like I was so in my head about what I had to play.
Yeah.
I wasn't connected to what was going on. And that was the change for me. Where it's not, he told me, this is not like a roller coaster ride. You have to white knuckle this thing all the way to the end.
Yeah.
He's like, you gotta sometimes put your sticks down, look around, listen, see what's happening around you. And play, he's like, play in the moment. I said to him, have you ever repeated the same solo? He's like, God, no. He's like, that would be too painful. he's like, because if I had to construct it and play it the same way every time, he's like, then I'm not in the moment.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to create it in the moment.
I like that.
Because I can sit here and work out this paradiddle sticking, right? And I can do a foot ostinato, all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that's to develop my facility. When I'm on the gig, he's gonna care that I work out this thing. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Because dude, if I go around the corner right now, I have VHS tapes, I have DVDs, I have a whole library of almost every drummer you could think of. Modern drummer festivals, you name it.
Yeah.
The year that the Modern Drummer Festival was all the gospel drummers, I was so deep into that. I wanted to be Aaron Spears. I wanted to be Teddy Campbell. I wanted to be all of them.
Yeah.
So I would start just absorbing all of that stuff.
Right.
But again, you have to, someone also said, as drummers, you want to be a blender. You have to take all of your influences, mix them all together, and that's what's going to make you sound like you. You don't necessarily have to sound like them. You can take elements from each person. I know that I'm a drummer, and I know when I can tell you exactly what my Ro Calhoun influence is. Part of both of influence. Because I went through a heavy Dave Matthews phase, like a lot of drummers did. You know?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I still sound like me.
Yeah.
Yes, I tried. Right?
Yeah, and we pull things. I mean, gosh, I've done a episode on my other podcast where my co-host and I talked about our influences, and as I was talking about who my influences are, I'm kind of sitting there thinking, where have I heard this person in my drumming? And I would think back to, oh yeah, it was right here when I recorded this track for this person and stuff like that. Yeah. So I love what you said about having to put all your influences in a blender, because you don't want to sound too much like one person. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today about Greta Van Fleet, the band Greta Van Fleet. Mm-hmm. And there are so many people saying, oh man, they sound so much like Led Zeppelin. Well, that's because that's who they were influenced by.
Right.
But, The problem is you can tell that. You can tell that they're influenced by Led Zeppelin. So, I mean, they're going to have to, like you said, put their influences in a blender and
Yeah,
create their own sound.
that's it. That's it. I mean, like I said before, I think we know early on that we gravitate to the things that we love. I knew that even in the sixth grade, because I still have my sixth grade yearbook.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they asked you, Silicon, what do you want to be when you grow up? And mine was always the same. It said, I want to be a famous drummer.
Yeah.
It's never changed. Now, the level of fame may dissipate.
Right.
I never thought, maybe you dream about it when you're younger. Yeah, I want to be like that guy on TV. But reality sets in and you got to work for a living.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, if the opportunity ever arose, would I take it? Absolutely. But it would have to be right.
Yeah.
It's different if you're a single guy and you don't have any dependents or mortgage. But when you have a family and it's not just about you, you got to take those things in consideration. And I forget, I did have one other amazing teacher in between or after Dave, and that was James Murphy, who is a student of Dave. And James Murphy and I met at a drum clinic that he, Vincenzo, and Rich Redmond were doing. It's like some benefit thing down in the YMCA in Salem, Mass. And I'm not a shy person. I was very shy in high school. When it comes to musicians and music, I'm gonna walk right up to you and introduce myself. That's just how I roll.
Right. Yeah.
So I hit up James as soon as the set was done, and we talked. And I said, "Yeah, I studied with Vincenzo." And he's like, "Oh, cool." And we just kind of hit it off that way. Kept in touch all those years. Fast forward to last March, he starts doing master classes online. So I shoot him an email, say, listen, I got a chunk of time on these days, let's link up. So for about 8 months, I was online with James. And when I tell students I'm going to start taking classes, they're like, why are you taking classes? And my answer is always, well, do I know everything? And they go, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, I'm still a student just like you. You don't get to a certain level and be like, okay, I'm good.
Right.
So I'm always on this quest to learn something that I can't do. And if we're talking about practice, those guys that I mentioned, Steve, Mangini, Vincenzo, and Murphy, they taught me, don't just play. Practice with a purpose. Like set your goals. That's the thing. I never had good study habits in school.
Yeah.
And that kind of carried over to my instrument until there were situations where I had to be ready. I had to figure it out. And James taught me an awesome system where he would take the days of the week, Monday through Friday, and on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, those would be his technique days.
Yeah.
And then on Tuesday, Thursday, those would be his groove or vocabulary days, if you will. And once I started doing that, it started to make sense to me. Because I always would start this crazy list. I'll show you this because I always have it. I started this drum journal. When I started studying with Vincenzo, or even maybe 2 years prior to that, I started a drum journal and I started writing down everything that I was working on.
Yeah.
And then I wrote down all the things I wanted to get better at. And the list just kept getting longer and longer. It was not organized, or it wasn't even that attainable. So I had to start making it in a way that was specific to what I was working on. So say if I have a wedding, right? And it's funny, I just played my first wedding in May after 2 years of not playing at all.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because everyone on the wedding, that was their first gig too. None of us had met. And all I got the week prior was the set list.
Right.
So what I did is like, well, I'm not going to show up and suck. So I took the set list, and the set list is all over the place, from Alicia Keys to B-52s. It was crazy, like 50 something songs. So what I did is I quickly went through the ones that I knew because I played them with the top 40 man, and then the ones that I didn't, I found the tempo. You know what I'm saying? I listened, but I didn't stress out. I'm like, oh, I have to play it like the record. No, I just listened, found the tempos, and I just relaxed. I didn't come down here and have to shed for 3 hours. I started to just listen more, and the gig was so smooth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what I love about like doing worship music in a church. You know, I don't stress like say we're doing a new song that we're introducing a new song to the congregation. I don't go, oh man, I've got to spend 2 weeks. Like, why are you just now giving me a week? Why are you just giving me a week's notice? Because the worship pastor is one of my closest friends, and so you know he and I talk at least 2 times a week, even if I'm not on the schedule to play. But you know, I never go. Why are you just now giving me this? You know, giving me this invite, or you know, like last week, I had to jump on the schedule because whoever the person that was scheduled couldn't play. So, and we were actually doing a new song last week, but it's never, man, I've got to cram for this or cram for that. As long as you keep the integrity of the song, you know, keep the keep that basic beat, you know, and if there are parts that the worship pastor is expecting to hear, then he's going to tell you in rehearsal, hey, there's a fill coming out of the second verse going into a bridge, or coming out of the second chorus going into a bridge that I'd really like for you to play. And we'll listen to it and I'll play it. But it's the same thing with that. As long as you keep the integrity of the song, as long as you're able to keep people dancing, that's all that matters. And I also love what you said about the splitting everything up. You know, having something Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and having something Tuesday and Thursday. Because if you think about it, I have a close friend who works out. Like his role model is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
He's got 23-inch biceps. If that tells you anything. So, but I know it. That is your workout regimen. You know, you don't go in, if you're a gym rat, you don't go into the gym and go bench press as much as you can 6 days a week and then leave. You do arms one day, legs the next day. You might focus on cardio the third day and then go back to arms and legs. You don't do, I'm not going to go into my practice space and do paradiddles 6 days a week, because what's that going to do? That's not going to help me any. So I love...
You'll be good at paradiddles.
Exactly. So I love that, yeah.
Well, let me just add to that. I think if you only practice what you can do, then that's all you'll be able to do. You have to step outside your comfort zone. And like I hear a lot of drummers say, you got to listen to things that may not be, you know, in your wheelhouse. Like I just played a private party on Saturday, and the client asked if we could do, you know, Chicken Fried by Zach Brown. Very popular song. We should have been playing it a long time ago, but the point is sometimes you just gotta get it done.
Yeah.
I don't care if you don't like it. That's what they're asking for. So just learn the song.
You know? Absolutely, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're paying your rent. You know what I mean? They're giving you the ability to pay your car note.
Yeah, I love seeing the people who will post, like the cover bands who will post, hey, if you make us play Mustang Sally, we're going to charge you $100. You know, if you make us play Freebird, we're going to charge you $250. Just play the dang song. Yeah. You know, because at the end of the day, they're paying your bills. Yeah, and like you just said.
Making them happy. Listen, there are some songs I could care less if I ever play again. I played them so many times. I could literally, when it's on the set list, I just go, oh well. Yeah. I just play it.
That's one less song I have to practice.
Right.
I've played with a country artist for the last 6 or 7 years, just here and there when he's needed me. And one of the songs, like you said, is the Jason Aldean song, My Kind of Party. Mm-hmm. And I see it on the set list and I'm like, oh crap. Yeah. But we play it because it gets people dancing. It gets people away from the bar or away from, you know, wherever they're at, and it gets them dancing. It gets them engaged. And then we can go into, you know, whatever song we want to do next. But getting people engaged and getting people to interact with you is what's going to pay your bills, because guess what? If somebody has a private function or a corporate event, because we had We had an instance where we played Talladega like 2 or 3 years in a row.
Oh, wow.
Sturgis 1 year. All because of just different people seeing what we do and enjoying what we do. And had we not played this song, that we've played 100 times, that's on the radio and popular, we might not have got those gigs.
Right. I don't know how this just popped in my head because you're just talking about experiences that really stand out.
Yeah.
I do have another one, and then I'll let you go because I literally could just keep talking.
Yeah, absolutely. I could too.
But and like I said, and if you want to extend this into another part, I am totally down because I have more to share. But I will share this with you. I did have a student back when he was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and he went off to college, and then somehow ended up in New York City, to chase the dream. He was a solid kid. It's funny. He went to school for business and
Yeah.
ended up becoming a professional musician. So, but as fate would have it, he ended up in New York City, starts making a name for himself around town, gets into just a working cover band, and the cover band starts playing parties for like Michael J. Fox and
Yeah.
what's the guy, that comedian, Michael Keegan Keel, I think that's his name. Big well-known comedian, and then he finds himself playing at these parties, and all of a sudden he's playing at a party, and Questlove shows up and is DJing at this party. So he starts
No way.
to meet all these people. Long story short, he auditions for a Broadway show.
Yeah.
Gig. So he's played drums for Mean Girls. He's played drums for The Waitress. And then one day my phone buzzes, and it's him sitting behind the kit on the stage about to go on. And he says, "Hey, just wanted to text you. I just had a flashback of me sitting in your basement.
Yeah.
And we were playing all those rudiments that you showed me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you." That was the text. And coincidentally, it's like, even before I got that text, we had gone to New York to take my daughter to see a show. And, he met us and brought us around the city to show us all the stuff because we told her she might be, end up going to school there. And now she's going to school there. But my point is, he made a point to take me to meet the rest of the band.
Yeah.
That's in the pit for the show. And he says, this is my drum instructor from New Hampshire.
Oh, wow.
These guys don't know me.
Yeah.
But he made a point to bring me over to all these other guys and all these drummers and tell me that I was the guy that got him started. That meant something to me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
So
great story. David
Yeah,
Blank,
I love it.
check him out. He's a New York drummer. Great player.
I will. I'll check them out as soon as we get off of here. So yeah, I mean, like you said, I can sit here and talk all day long, but I mentioned in the beginning of this, because this was supposed to be episode 7 of the Creative Percussion Podcast, but we went a completely different direction, which I love. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make this just an exclusive bonus episode, so to speak. And I'm going to post this just exclusively on YouTube. And so we will come back to a part 2 where we actually do episode 7 of the Creative Percussion Podcast. So until then, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, man.
Absolutely.
God bless.